Hey guys, Tony Reed here. Now we all know spring is right around the corner and you're going to need plenty of podcasts on your playlist for those long hours in the field. The one podcast that I'm going to recommend is Farm for Profit. Tanner, Dave, and Corey do a phenomenal job of having a wide range of guests on their show. It might be anyone from a university professor to an estate planner to a marketing analyst. They even have Machinery Pete on there from time to time. Then once a week they do a Farm for Fun episode where they sit around and crack a few cold ones and kind of get off the beaten path a little bit. And those guests may come from Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, or even TikTok. It's a great podcast. You got to go check it out. They're on all the major players, Spotify, iTunes, Pandora, all of them. You can even go to Google and type in farm4profit.com and read all about them. They call themselves the mullet of podcasts. Go check it out. You won't regret it. That's farm4profit. Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Straightforward Farming Podcast. I'm your host, Tony Reed, alongside Mr. Nick McCormick. Nick, what's been up with you this week?
Oh, just trying to endure this cold weather and watching these grain markets move up and down a little bit and watching the long lines at the elevator.
I hear you there. We've been moving some corn out, and of course, we hire all of our trucking done, but the lines in Decatur have just, I mean, they were telling me that they're parking trucks up there in line in places they've never seen them park before. I mean, we're talking 3-4 hour lines. This has been going on for weeks now, and I've been noticing on TikTok, you know, it seems like all the guys that I follow on there that are hauling grain are running into the same problems. I mean, there is a lot of grain moving right now.
Yes, there is.
And it's you know, that's always kind of been, I don't know if you'd call it intriguing or what, you know. So up there, Decatur, Illinois, that's your headquarters of ADM, Tate and Lyle,
yep.
You know, major processors up there, big time outfits. And now, you know, I understand there's limitations to everything. I mean, I think ADM's got 5 corn dumps there, but you know, I don't know how many trucks they get a day. I mean, 1,000 or whatever it is. So I mean, you know, you're always going to have a line there. You know, Don't get me wrong, but you know, some of these local elevators around here, I wonder why they've never upgraded as the times have changed. You know, I mean, I know stuff costs money, but you know,
it costs money. It does make you wonder. You know, if you look at our local situation, the town you and I grew up next to, whatever. You know, they really didn't change a lot from when we had a 715 until here recently.
Yeah.
You know, I can bring corn in a lot faster now than I used to be able to. But you know, on a grander scale, you know, you look at even into the farm bin industry. Okay, so bins go up every day, and farmers are putting up more bins, and local elevators are fading off a little bit, and you know, we're storing it on the farm, partially just from a sheer, so we can haul in any time, right? You know, if I've got my own bins, I can chill till 4 a.m. if I really want to. You know, but it's intriguing to me, the things that as a farmer out there, you know, loading my bin, unloading my bin, that I see instantly that clearly no one in the grain bin industry sees, which kind of ties into our other conversation on engineers. How many of those guys do you think have ever scooped a bin out? Yeah. You know, I'll give you a very simple example. When we put up our last bin, told the guys putting it up, hey, want the bolts put in, heads in, you know, the end of the bolt sticking out on the bottom ring. Why would you want to do that? It's like, well, so the shovel doesn't catch the bolt head the bolt sticking in every time, and the nut. Never thought of that. But clearly, you've never scooped a bin out. You've put up a lot of bins, but you've never scooped one out. You only scoop out one till you realize that those bolt heads screw you every time.
They do. You're right.
The guy's like, you know, I've been putting up bins for 40 years. That's a hell of an idea. He's like, well, you have to have, you know, rubber washers. I'm like, got them right here. MasterCar, got a whole bag full. You use them up. Don't care. They're yours when you're done. Don't care. Well, that's a good idea. You know, it's something as simple as that. Take the floors, for instance. At what point do you say, you know, this bin would be a lot easier to sweep if all the floor ran to the sump.
Yeah.
So you could sweep any spot instead of chucking it across all the ribs to get it to the one that lines up and trying to shove it through the broom all the way across the 36-foot bin, 48-foot bin, whatever you got. Just little things like that clearly the guys designing those, don't spend a lot of time in a grain bin. Not knocking you guys. You're probably really good with a mouse, but you're not very good with a shovel and a broom. And that's the part that I care about.
Yeah. Every shovel we got's got the corners knocked off of it. From
Absolutely.
Catching bolts on the bin.
Yeah, absolutely. They all do, because they catch every time. You know, You know, and stirrators, I realize are getting used less and less these days. You guys are going to shivers, etc., whatever. But do they make a stirrator that actually goes around more than once?
Not that I'm aware of, and I tell you what, I am so thankful we have 0 stirrators on our farm. It's shivers, and that's it. And, I mean, not saying they don't work, because there's guys that are clearly using them, but, God, you want to talk about babysitting and fiddle fucking around. God, that just scares me to death.
You could take the most Christian fellow in the world, give him 3 stirrators to keep working. He's hanging from a rope in the barn by the end of the day.
Yeah.
Because I haven't seen one that works.
Nope.
I'll give you a simple example on that. So my great uncle built a bin in, I had to be in the 80s, and we had some trouble with it at some point in time. Burns a hole in the track like they always do. Mm-hmm. But the track end bolts from the inside. The braces and the piece that bolts to the bin are separate from the actual track, so you can just unbolt it. We put a bin up 3 years ago. It's all one piece. So you got to have a guy on the inside of the bin and a guy on the outside of the bin.
No kidding.
So now if the bin's empty, let's say, you need a 30-foot ladder on the inside, a 30-foot ladder on the outside. Why in God's green earth would you weld all that together when that track could clearly unbolt? And here's a news flash for them. Let's not try to use a round wheel on a flat track. Maybe put some positive drive to it so it can actually go around.
Yeah.
Instead of spinning out and burning a hole in the track. There are 1,000 ways that you can make that thing move. But we don't use any of them.
Yeah. Has stirrator technology changed at all in the last...
Not that I know of. Near as I can tell, they will still quit and they still burn a hole in the track. If you go to the Farm Machinery Show, you can't go this year because it got canceled, but next year go to the National Farm Machinery Show and go to a major manufacturer's booth of grain bins and look at their stirrator. It's set in still in their little display. And that's as far as that damn thing will go when you buy it and put it on your farm. It's not moving on your farm either. I realize they've just got it for display purposes, but it ain't going any farther on your farm. Yeah. It's going to stop right where it's at, burn a hole in the track every time. There has got to be a better way to move that grain around. I've got a few ideas, but I'm not voicing them here because I'm not giving them away. You guys want to know them, you call me, maybe I'll sell them to you. But there's got to be a way to drive that stirrator around the bin.
I'll guarantee you our local bin company has made $1 million working on stirrators.
Oh, like I said, if you're not suicidal, you will be by the end of the day trying to keep a stirrator running. And there's no sense in, the best stirrator we've got is the one nobody wants, is the Unidrive. It's got 5 screws on it. They don't go in and out, and they will channel grain if you put too much in, too wet, too fast.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you're good. You're going to put new belts on it every year. As soon as we fill it up the first time, we just put new belts on it, grease it, and go, because you can't get to any of it otherwise. Yeah. And you're good. We put Kevlar belts on it, and it's good. It'll go around. It levels off in no time. It's fine. Those ones that move in and out, once they quit, they channel grain too, because once it quits, you're hung. Yeah. It's going around the hard spots. It's not going to stir it up either. They can draw you this fancy pattern on their literature. All this thing's, it looks like a road map of Montana Farmer 75 going to Ohio, this, that, and the other, all the way around, 8,000 miles. That thing's going to travel about 8 foot, and it's going to get stuck. It's going to burn a hole in the track, and it's going to be right in front of the door. That's my other pet peeve. If you have a stirrator in a bin, there has to be 2 doors in the lid. Because if there's not, it's going to stop underneath the first one. And then how do you get in the bin?
Yeah.
Near as I can tell, you got to find somebody way slimmer than me, because the hole's already half the size it ought to be. I don't know who they build grain bins for. Apparently there's a quartet of circus dwarfs that work on grain bins somewhere, because you cannot get a full-grown man through the current door. Yeah. $50,000 bin, right? And pick your size, whatever, 50 grand roughly. You can't get in the door, and we're going to seal that door. Hope.
Yeah.
That's all we're using is hope. Yeah. We're just going to hope like hell it seals, because we got this little piece of weather stripping. The hinges is kind of bended over. We got this hokey latch on it. It might stay shut in the winter. It's probably not going to. You're probably going to have a bad spot right below it, but ain't no big deal. If I buy a $50,000 car, I ought to be able to drive that thing 160 mile an hour and the wind blows in. I'm kind of expecting the same thing from a grain bin.
That is truly one industry that has not changed. I mean, there's nothing to change. I mean,
there's got to be something to change. So every day somebody puts up a grain bin, and every day the auger that they currently own won't fit underneath the out auger of it because the foundation isn't high enough.
Yep.
At some point, grain bin engineers raise the spec for that. You know what the auger measures? It's sitting right over there. Raise them up. We'll just put this angle head on it. Sure, we cut your capacity by 2/3.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll put this angle head, or just dig a hole. You know how handy that hole is in the winter when it rains and then it freezes. Now your auger's stuck down there. Now you need to put a bearing in your swing leg because you can't get underneath there. Your truck auger won't fit to begin with because we got a giant safety shield the size of Chicago blocking the whole thing. It just infuriates me. Yeah. There's no technology in the grain bin industry. All you got to do is walk up to the door, look at the door, hokey as all get out, and the fact that the floor doesn't all meet to the sump, and you know, this is going to suck. And none of those people that are working on anything in that industry have ever swept a grain bin out.
Yep. Yeah,
you only sweep one of them out till you make about 25 changes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I mean, there's just not much new technology in the grain bin industry.
No. I mean, literally, if you bought a vacuum for your house and it could only go north-south, how handy would that be for you? Yeah. But that's what the grain bin industry gives you. Yep, north-south, that's all you get. You got one spot where you can go crossways. Other than that, you got to walk to the other end of the house to change the direction of the vacuum. Does that seem like a good idea? No, it's not. It's not a good idea.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And I don't know if the average American citizen who lives in a city, realizes it's the little shit like that just makes your job 10 times harder. You know what I mean?
No, I'm sure they don't. And they got their own problems. I mean, I get that. But it's like some of that stuff can be simplified. I mean, you're not talking about scientists of rockets here. I mean, we're not sending a person to the moon.
Right.
We're talking about getting grain from up here into a hole. Right. I mean, that's about as menial task as you can get.
It used to always piss me off. We built 5 bins there, build them all a year apart there. And I always thought too, okay, when you first start sweeping a bin out, you start right by the door.
Yeah.
Because you got to be able to get in the door, right?
Yep.
But they had the floors running the other way.
Yeah.
It's like, well, now, damn it, you know for a fact that once this sweep bar goes around, it's going to stop again at the door. Then the bin's going to be cleaned out. And so that's where I'm going to be sweeping all my grain from. But now I'm sweeping it all crossways because you put the floor in the wrong way. Turn it the other way.
Right at the tap. Run them all to the middle. Yeah. It doesn't seem like that hard a concept to me.
No, I don't know. But like you said, guy been building them 40 years and didn't know to put the wall heads on the...
We got a staircase on this last bin. Mm-hmm. And it's narrow. It's better than a ladder, but it's not awesome. So I go to the farm progress show. I look at their bin. It's got this real wide staircase on it. So I asked the guy, hey, that's got the same brand on it I bought. How come yours is twice as wide as mine? Well, that's a commercial staircase. So near as I can tell, guys that clean out commercial bins are fatter than me. Yeah. They need a wider staircase. I'm like, well, I'd like to know. He said, well, that's a commercial option, and we don't normally sell it to farmers. Well, that would be great information to put in the brochure that, hey, we'll sell you this staircase, but you're not going to be happy with it.
Yeah, no kidding.
But I'm like, I wasn't looking for the Ford Ranger of staircases. I was looking for the F-350. Yeah. It'd be nice not to have my shoulder rub the bin as I go up. I mean, it's still better than a ladder. It is better than that. But then they stop it partway down. It's got hokey braces and stuff. I end up putting some extra ones on it. I'm like, so it's like a staircase you might fall off of, you might not. It's a little better than a ladder. You should probably still wear a helmet.
We must have commercials on ours are Brock bins, but the staircase is not Brock stair. It's a Green as a brand name. They're nice and wide, sturdy. Ain't had no trouble with them.
You must have got the commercial ones. Mine are green as well. And apparently I got the slim and thin petite version. And a full-grown adult does not fit up those.
No kidding. Oh, yeah. Heck, the ones we got, they're twice as wide as what I am as a person, at least. I mean, yeah, I'll be darned.
Well, you got those precision meters. You're growing better corn than I am. Yeah, no. You got to go to the top more often. But my shoulder rubs them. I mean, I'm a large individual. I'm not saying I'm not. But I would like to have a little more space. I would like to have the option. I didn't know there was a staircase you can almost use and a staircase you can use. I would have opted for the one you can use.
Yeah, I don't know. It's, something else I want to talk about. I had never thought of this until me and Doug, the Montana Farmer 75, was talking. And he brought this up, and I had never thought about this before. And so we were talking about how city people... don't know shit about where their food comes from, could really care less. They just think it's all in the grocery store and that's the end of it, this, that, and the other. And he brought this up. Have you ever thought about the fact how us as farmers know very little about our own industry? And I'm going to give you a prime example. If I told you today, hey, there's a shit pile of money to be made in cotton this year, fuck it, let's plant cotton. Are you going to know how to grow cotton?
No, I'm not.
I'm not either. Or sunflowers.
No, you're exactly right.
Lentils,
that's a very valid point. We don't know a ton about that.
I mean, I know what it is. I know the general concept. Pretty much, I know as much about cotton as what a guy in New York City probably knows about raising corn. I know that this guy planted it. He harvested in some fashion.
Yeah.
And that's about the end of it.
Yeah.
And so I never thought about that until he said that. And he is right. We've kind of dropped the ball ourselves as farmers. I mean,
we have. We're very small-minded. Well, we kind of.
It's very isolated. We pay attention to our own backyard.
Yes, we pay attention to our own backyard, and we don't worry about so much about what the other guys doing. Whereas our predecessors had to grow their own food.
Yeah.
So they were planting a variety of things in their garden to supply themselves, whereas now we're kind of specialized, if you will. In our neck of the woods, it's corn and soybeans, a little bit of wheat. That's what we're good at. That's what we stick to. That's what's the most profitable in this area. Otherwise, we'd be doing something else. But you're right. We don't know that much about that as other industries. From my tractor pulling background, I'm exposed to people from a wide range of states. So I know a little bit about some of that stuff, just enough to be dangerous. I couldn't grow it successfully. All I know is about some of that stuff is way more work than corn. I don't want any part of it.
Yeah,
but I do know a little bit about it, but not a lot. You're exactly right on that. So we probably need to be better as an industry. And I think social media, TikTok, et cetera, is going to help with that.
Yeah.
3 months ago, I didn't know who Montana 75 was.
No.
Today, I can call Doug up and he'll explain to me, hey, this is how we do this is how we do that. We might see him in another week or two. Who knows?
Yeah.
Guy drives around all the time. We're liable to see him anywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
but that's a very valid point. We need to be a little better about that. And as the farming industry in general, I think we struggle explaining to the public just how good their food supply is and how safe it is. And I saw a quote, I think it was from a former ag director the other day, could be the current one, I don't know. But he's like, the farming industry is 0.5% of the population of the United States. And he's like, they farm and they raise food so the rest of us don't have to. And I haven't really thought of those terms. He's like, you're not going to work tomorrow to be a nurse. You're not going to work tomorrow to be whatever your chosen profession is if you don't have food.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to be a gardener first.
Yeah.
And then you're going to do the rest of the stuff because you're going to make sure your kids eat.
Yeah.
So, you're not going to work till 10 o'clock because you had to garden in the morning and you got to be home by 5 so that you can do some more gardening to grow your own food. And the average American doesn't have to deal with that now.
Right.
Because they can go to the grocery store and they can buy it anytime they want. And we're one of the few countries in the world that has that luxury, but we're providing that. But the public doesn't necessarily understand that. And we got to be a little better about, we're all guilty of it, about educating the public on what we do, how we do it, how safe it is, how beneficial it is for them, and how cheap their food actually is.
Yeah.
There's such a disconnect between the average city person, and it's no fault of their own. I'm not blaming the average city person.
Yeah.
Why do they care what I'm doing?
Right.
I only care about their view of it if they start complaining about it.
Yeah.
If they're just going to the grocery store and buying it, I don't care. But if they want to complain about how I'm doing it, well, then look at my side of it and try to understand it. I always say that rural people know more about city life than city people know about rural life.
Yeah.
But if we go visit the city, they don't ever go to the farm. I remember going to college, talking to a guy the first night I was there. He's like, man, look at those stars. And I'm like, yeah, they're fine. Why? He's like, never seen them before. I'm like, what do you mean you never seen the stars? He's like, well, I've never been outside the city. He's like, in Chicago, you can't see the stars. Mm-hmm. I had never thought about that. That's something I've taken for granted at that point for 18 years that I could see the stars. But they know that little about the stars. Yeah. They darn sure don't know anything about how I'm growing corn. Take GMOs, for instance, and I don't want to go down the GMO rabbit hole on this episode. We'll save that for another time. But talk to some people from the city about GMOs. They actually think we inject every seed with Roundup. Mm-hmm. They don't know that we spray it on the crop. It's long since gone. It's not in the product they're eating. They think they're literally eating Roundup.
Yeah.
And that's just a small example of it. So how do we educate the public sector on what we're doing? Not that they need to know every intricate detail, but they need to be confident in what we're doing. And I think so much of that comes back to, in today's canceled out society, and I want to be mad at somebody's society, it's very easy to pick on industries, right? Mm-hmm. So the average consumer in America, we hate big oil, right? We hate big oil. We hate propane. We hate natural gas. We hate the American farmer. We hate troops. We hate power plants. We don't want any of that stuff. Boy, we don't want any of that. My gosh, we're just going to go to the grocery store. We're going to get our food. We're going to eat organic, and we're going to be super healthy, and we're going to live our lives. But they fail to realize without any of those, they're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, people that, don't like coal, oil, natural gas, walk to work then tomorrow. Prove your point. Stand up, prove your point, walk to work. Don't buy food at McDonald's. Don't buy food at the grocery store. Grow your own garden. You know how many people starve in about 2 weeks?
Oh, yeah.
Pretty much all of them.
Yeah.
It's very easy to hate on these big industries. I have no problem with oil companies making money. You know why oil companies make money? Because they provide something that I have used all day.
Yep. My
boots are made from something that was produced by petroleum. My truck drove over to your house by petroleum. All that's petroleum powered. I don't care how you can be the greenest person in the world. All those windmills standing out, littering up the United States, they all got oil in those gearboxes.
Yep.
There's not a single one of them powered by unicorn farts and fairy dust.
Yeah.
They've all got petroleum in them. And the same thing holds true with farmers. People want to hold farmers, accountable for this and accountable for that, and you shouldn't make any money. You find me another industry. Let's just take the average. Let's just pick a 1,000-acre farmer, right? And this 1,000-acre farmer has, what's he got tied up in equipment and land? $5 million? Let's call it $5 million. So $5 million, and let's say what's an acceptable wage for this guy? This guy farms 1,000 acres. What's his acceptable wage? Let's call it $100,000 for easy math. So he's got $5 million tied up in a job that might net him $100,000. Might. Crops could go up. Crops could go down. He might make 200. He might make 25. He might go broke. Mm-hmm. You find me another industry. You know anybody that paid $5 million to go to college to get their $250,000 a year job?
Right.
I don't know anybody there's doctors that didn't have $5 million wrapped up in their college degree to make $250,000, $300,000, $500,000, whatever they're making.
Yep. They
didn't tie up $10 million. And I'm not crying the sad song of the American farmer.
Right.
But I'm just saying you got to look at it from all aspects, right? So I think we've got to be better about educating them in the fact that, yes, a tractor does cost $200,000, so I can produce your $1.50 Big Mac. Mm-hmm. And the correlation there is very hard to explain. Farming doesn't make any sense if you write it in on paper.
Right.
So you have to grow up in it to know it, to love it, to want it. But we have to bridge the gap a little bit to explain to these people kind of sort of how we're getting from point A to point B so that they're not starving in the corner.
Right.
Because they don't want to go back to growing their own food. I can assure you of that.
Right. Exactly. And how do you, it's like some people are so set in their ways, it's almost like you got to, I don't know if you'd call it re-educate. One conversation ain't going to change their mind. You're not just going to say, well, hey, this is actually how I do it.
No.
And they're just going to go home and say, oh, okay, well, I guess I didn't realize that. They're very removed from what's going on and got their mind made up.
They're super removed on so many levels. And it's not really their own fault. They have no need to know unless they start complaining about it. Mm-hmm. It brings back, kind of related, Ronald Reagan always made the joke, in Russia you order a car and it takes 10 years to get your car. And so he asked the guy, well, is it going to be in the morning or in the afternoon? And the guy's like, what does it matter? It's 10 years from now. He's like, well, the plumber's coming in the morning.
Yeah.
So if you got to grow your own food, well, you're pretty concerned about a lot of things that are happening then, right? You need to know all that information. Those guys they don't have to grow their own food. There's 300 million people in this country. There's, 200,000 growing the food? The rest of them are just eating.
Yeah.
Which I'm happy with. The more that eat, the better I am.
Yeah.
But you can't complain about one thing if you're not willing to put the effort into finding out about the other.
Right.
I'm not going to complain about the way you air up your tire if I don't know how to air up a tire myself.
Right.
Right? You might be doing it right. You might be doing it wrong. I don't know unless I figure out how to air up a tire.
Yeah.
So if you're going to complain about it, find out about it first. And that goes for everything.
Yeah,
as far as that goes in this society. You can complain about a lot of things, but learn a little bit about it before you go complaining about it. I mean, I'm not saying I've never complained about something I know nothing about. You'll probably hear a little bit of this podcast. You probably heard some things on this podcast. There's an engineer sitting around somewhere going, the grain bin floor is made like this because, whatever. Then that may be, feel free to DM me and explain it to me why you don't run it to the center. I'm happy to learn. But food's a pretty important thing. I don't know anybody that eats less than once a day.
Yeah.
You know, or at least they want to.
Yeah.
You know, so you don't complain about it unless you're willing to dig into the facts and find out about it.
Whatever started the bad rap on the farmers, though? I mean, I see it on TikTok all the time. You know, somebody, and it will be the most innocent random video of a guy literally planting corn and, you know, hey, we're down to 80 acres left and this and that. And he'll have 100 comments, and 15 of those will be somebody that just absolutely hates farmers with a passion. It's like, you know, what is the major malfunction here, Private Pile? I mean,
I think that's just, I think that's the nature of the beast on where we're at as a society. It's easy to poke the big guy. It's easy to poke at things you don't know anything about, because everybody's a badass on the internet. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, you know, I can comment on one of your posts and I can be the toughest guy in the world, right? But if we meet face to face, well, then I'm like, hey, you know, it's not that big a deal. Yeah. But if, you know, on the internet, I can type whatever I want because I'm big and I'm strong. So I think a little bit of it's that as we move into a digital age. And some of it is the disconnect has just grown so far. You know, there was a time, I'll never forget an ag class or ag teacher at the time. Tony and I had the same one, you know, talked about, he went around the class and asked how many people's parents actively farmed. And then asked what everybody else's parents did. And everybody in the class was tied to farming in some way, shape, or form for the most part.
Yeah.
They didn't farm, but they were actively tied to it.
Yep.
And that has separated a little bit. They don't care. And once again, I think it's just easy to pick on any big industry. So it doesn't matter, like I said, big oil,
Yeah.
big farming, big pharmaceuticals, you know. Everybody's unhappy about some things that big pharmaceuticals are doing. But at the end of the day, they don't mind having Band-Aids and whatever pills they need to take.
Right.
You know, I got no problem with anybody making a profit, but it's easy to pick on the big industries. You know, nobody's picking on the organic candle maker that's providing candles for homeless shelters in a third world country, even though he might be doing gosh only knows what that pollutes this, does whatever, because he's making 3 candles a year and, you know, it's no big deal. But it's easy to pick on what you see. You know, it's easy to be mad at what you don't know about and something that's big.
Right. Which I'll never forget it when you're talking about pharmaceuticals. So there in 2014 when I got Lyme disease, and I mean, I don't have to tell you the story on that. I mean, it literally almost killed me. And it was in, I think, the fall of 2016 then. By the time we got a diagnosis and went through the whole rigmarole, it was a train wreck. But nonetheless, the doctors were going to put me on this very, very powerful medicine. And I was fighting it tooth and nail. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm not. I refuse to do it. And so finally Dad sat me down one day and he's like, why don't you want to do it? I'm like, man, you know, that medicine, that's not good to be taking that stuff long term. I'm not going to do it. This, that, and the other. And he said, well, let me tell you something. So my dad was talking about his dad, which had been my grandpa. And he said, well, let me tell you this. He said, I used to kind of think the way you did, but he said, you know, 30 years ago when Dad had heart trouble, he said they loaded that guy up on medicine like you wouldn't believe. And he said, he told my mom, he said, you know, they're going to kill that man with the medicine they put him on. And my grandpa ended up living another between 35 and 40 years.
Yeah.
And so Dad said, you know, that's when I had to rethink that whole strategy, because he said, I looked at it as they were just shoving these pills down his throat and they're going to kill this guy. And actually it gave him 35 or 40 years longer to live.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, he would have been dead, no questions about it, you know. So that's another one when it comes to pharmaceuticals and these companies, you know, it's so easy to pick on. And I guess I even see that from people in the farming community that pick on big pharma the way that city people pick on farmers.
So yeah, I think that just proves the point that it's very easy in today's world to be negative, right? Because negative is popular.
Right.
You know, you can be super positive, post positive TikTok videos, whatever it is, and that'll get you a few views. To your own, you know, point of what you kind of do a little bit, people like the negativity and they like the insults.
Yeah.
You know, that's a very small example, but it's on a big scale. Everybody's, you know, a bad mofo on the internet.
Yeah.
You know, it's very easy to type some comment in how you hate this industry and hate that industry. but you're still using those industries.
Yeah.
And so I think we all need to take a step back and look at it and get out of the cancel culture a little bit and be a little more positive and a little less negative, whether it's big pharma, big farming, every 1,000-acre farmer hates a 2,000-acre farmer, or 2,000-acre farmer hates a 4,000-acre farmer.
Yeah.
Not hates them, but you see where I'm going with it or whatever. A small gas station doesn't like a big gas station. And just take a step back, live in your world, make it the best you can be, and quit being quite so negative about every facet of life.
Yeah. And even, I guess, to the point on the farming is jealousy runs pretty deep. You don't ever want to see the neighbor be more successful than you for whatever reason. And, we're probably all a little bit guilty of that. I actually have strayed away from a lot of that as I've gotten older. I'm the type, you leave me alone, I leave you alone. If you go out and make $20 million, more power to you. I mean, it don't bother me.
And I agree.
As long as you do it ethically and honestly.
The older we get, I'll take it down to a very small scale for us, Tony. So in our own community here, you're very popular on TikTok, right? On a widespread thing. You're very popular on TikTok. I'm super tickled pink about that for you. Not everybody necessarily has that same view locally. Even people that you and I call friends might say something somewhat negative behind your back. And some of it's just, in jest or whatever, because we make fun of each other all the time. Sure. I don't care what you do. You could make the sun rise in the west tomorrow. I'm going to make fun of you for it. You can make it rise in the east. I'm going to make fun of you for it. To a little bit. But why is it? I suppose it happens in the cities, but it's so big and grand that nobody really notices. But on the local level where you know everybody, if somebody is doing something well, we're mad about it.
Yeah.
And why is that? We have to be a lot better about that. It's like, that guy goes to church, but he was driving 56 and a 55 this morning, so he's no Christian. That person's farming 1,200 acres, and he's growing 180 bushels of corn. I'm farming 800 acres, and I'm growing 181.
Yeah.
Well, I'm better than he is. Just live in your own world, and let's help each other.
I agree.
You can lift. 20 guys can lift a barn up and carry it together.
Yeah.
Take a guy 3 weeks to build that on his own.
Yeah.
Just help each other and try to be a little more positive. Be a little more farm-boy-matish, a little more popular instead of, positive instead of so negative in the world.
Yeah. And that's what I got to give like the guys at Farm for Profit credit for. They reached out to me and, they said, hey, you're doing this podcast. We want to be your very first sponsor. And to me, that's very unique that another podcast wants to sponsor my podcast. And that's a prime example of what you said. Instead of tearing each other down, let's build each other up.
Let's build each other up. Like I said about this whole deal, with you getting popular on TikTok and the podcast and the whole 9 yards. If I can help you in any way, shape, or form, that benefits me. My kids are friends with your kids. I'm friends with you. The better you do, the better I do.
That's right.
I read something years ago that, you're going to be as successful as your 5 closest friends, right? Yep. So if your 5 closest friends are drug-using dirtbags, you're probably going to end up being the 6th.
Yeah.
If your 5 closest friends are multi-billionaires, you're probably going to be fine.
Yep.
So let's help each other out, build each other up, and quit being, the farming TBI dad videos here lately have really hit home to me because, you hear about some of that stuff and you know what's happening. But to see it every day when he posts one of those, it's like, yeah, I know that happened.
Yep.
I heard about that. I know a guy that did that. And it's like, why do we have to be that way? Let's many hands make light work. Let's lift each other up and try to be better about it.
Yeah, I agree. And I told my, farming TBI dad anymore, and I don't remember, I told him this in private or if it was in one of his lives one night, that anymore I just call a spade. On guys that want to act like that, it don't bother me in the least. I tell them right to their face exactly what I think, and I go home and sleep like a baby. You're digging your own grave on that deal. So if you want to be that way, that's fine. It's a free country. You're more than welcome to do that. But when you have to hire pallbearers at your own funeral, you caused it.
Karma always comes back around.
Yep.
Let's just try to be better about lifting each other up instead of tearing each other down.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the vast majority of people on TikTok, know that the way that I talk and treat my followers is
absolutely,
is a lot of satire in that,
for sure. But you see that as my example of
exactly,
people are drawn to that versus positivity.
Yeah.
And I'm not knocking you for that by any means, because I laugh about it every time. And I think the same thing. We've been doing this since we were in kindergarten.
Yeah, exactly.
We've been making those same comments for years.
Yeah.
It just, now it's,
Yeah, it's on a bigger scale.
Yeah, it's on a bigger scale to a broader audience. But I think we need to be a little bit better at being positive.
But you are right. I mean, even people at the local level, they don't ever want to see the next guy succeed, and maybe that's more locally here where we live. I don't know.
No, I think it's everywhere from what I've seen. Like I said, I end up in a fairly large scale of the Midwest just through tractor pulling and whatnot. Know a lot of people, in a variety of locations, and I think it's everywhere. It's very easy to cheerlead for someone to fail. If you're succeeding, 3 people will show up to watch it. But if you're going down, let's face it, the Super Bowl's coming up this weekend. I know you're a sports guy, and I don't follow football that much more anyway. Half those people are there to watch Tom Brady win, and half of them are there. See, I told you he wasn't that good. And he's too old, and he's going to fail.
Yeah.
And they're going to cheerlead a lot harder than the guys that are there to see him win.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's funny how that works, and I don't know. And I guess, maybe times change with the age. I mean, I've never asked Dad if it was that way when he was our age or not.
Honestly, I think they're so busy just making a living and feeding themselves that they didn't have time for the rest of it.
Yeah. And back then, like we talked in a previous podcast, you actually did work with your neighbors. You did want the guy to succeed because you were counting on him. You were buying your feeder pigs from him, or you somehow worked together in some way, shape, or form.
One neighbor had a corn picker. You had a wagon.
Yeah.
The other neighbor had a tractor. Not everybody had everything. So you all had to work together.
You were almost in a bind if he went down because it's like, goddamn, who's going to pick my corn now?
Well, my mother and I just talked about this the other day. When she was a little girl, or, not little, but, adolescent, whatever, teenager, whatever, your whole social scene revolved around church, your church family. You did this with them, you did that with them, you helped them do this. They come over and help you cut up a pig. You went over and helped them can, And as we become more self-sufficient, it's very easy to sit back with rose-colored glasses and be like, that guy's doing it wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go over and help him and show him how he's doing it wrong, or help him out and show him how to do it right. I'm just going to sit back here and laugh.
Yeah.
And it's terrible to say, but you see it on every scale of the world today. It doesn't matter if you're putting in windshields, or if you're, growing corn, if you're getting oil out of the ground. It's in every industry, and it's very easy to go down that path, but we should be better about it.
And I think you almost set yourself up mentally for that. So take, for example, anytime there's a land auction, you feel like it should bring $6,000 an acre, but it brings $8,500. And the first thing you're going to say is the guy that bought it, he'll go broke. I mean, what the hell's that guy thinking?
That'll never pay for it. I bought at 6 till that guy outbid me.
Yeah.
18 more times. I quit bidding at 6.
Yeah. Yep.
Went clear to.
And, and 15 years after the fact, the guy's still rolling along, didn't phase him in the least, so it's easy to get that mentality of negativity, I guess, because you didn't end up with what you thought you should have. Or
sour grapes are way easier to find than the good ones.
Yeah, they are.
And that's, like I said, it's in every facet of our life, and we need to be a little better about it. You show up with a new pickup truck at my house, and I'm like, it must be nice.
Yeah.
I don't count the 4,000 hours of overtime you put in, and the fact that you did this, or you did that, or you didn't buy this, or you didn't buy that. I'm just, Tony's got a new pickup.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you got a new pickup, but you know where I'm going on this. Same thing's true of me. It's, he's got this and he's got that. Well, that must be nice. Well, there's a lot of things that go into that, and you gotta factor all those things in instead of judging so quick. It'll be a little bit better.
Yeah, it would be no different if you were driving down the road right here just south of my house in the middle of nowhere, and you come up on a car with, New York plates on it, and they're parked halfway in the middle of the road, and they're out taking pictures of a corn crop. You're going to be like, these dumbass cities, I get so sick of this.
Yeah.
It's an inconvenience. Rather than stop and, say, hey, you guys ain't from around here, what are you doing? What's going on? Try to teach them something about what they're taking pictures of. It's just like, screw you guys, get out of my way, And once again, that's where we've dropped the ball as farmers. Maybe if you would reach out to them people and try to...
And truth be told, they're probably local. Their car's in a shop. They went to Enterprise and rented one. And they own the ground. And they, they may not farm, but they own the ground. They want to take a picture of it. They're getting, family pictures with their kids.
Yeah.
And you're like, blocking the road.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, we all need to do better. There's no, and I'm as guilty as anybody. I mean, I truly am.
Me too. I'm not saying I'm exclusive, that I'm excluding myself on this, because I for sure do it. My wife would tell you I'm not the most positive person in the world, and I get that pretty honest. But you try to, you hope better for yourself at some level, or you want to want better for yourself and for others, and we need to be a little more diligent about that.
Yeah. What do you think is the best way to start educating city people? Which I see it in the Farm Bureau paper a couple times a year. They have this, I don't remember if they call it ag in the classroom, or no, it ain't that. Basically, they'll take Illinois state representatives from Chicago, the true city people that are state representatives, and they will bring them to downstate Illinois and show them around a farm for a day or two. And, I don't know I don't know that that's even doing any good there either. Some of these people are so set in their ways. And another thing is you've almost got to be a salesman on some of that stuff. And you know how politicians are. They tiptoe around bring them bastards to my farm. I'm going to lay the law down and tell them how it is. I'm not going to tiptoe around. I don't give a shit about being politically correct. And, well, we think we should do it this way and we can do better. And we're really wanting to transition to cover crop. I'll tell them right up front, I'm not doing cover crops. I'm not fucking interested in it.
I think the whole world at the end of the day comes down to perception and marketing, right? So are Air Jordans better than whatever other shoe there is? I don't wear either one, but that's an easy target to pick, because Jordan's been popular through my whole childhood, adult life even. I think he still outsells anybody that's currently in the NBA. Mm-hmm. But that's all marketing.
Right.
You can argue any company, pick your industry, why are they successful? Well, it comes down to their sales pitch on it, right?
Yeah.
We have to find a way to sales pitch ourselves. I'll never forget, and this has been years and years and years and years ago. And the guy, I won't mention the name now, he's passed away, but there were I believe they were Japanese people had come over to farm tour, and they showed him a bin full of grain. And the guy's like, "That's what corn looks like?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "It's not what it looks like when it gets to our place." "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, it's full of rocks and this, that, and the other." And I don't know if they throw that on the barge to fill in or whatever, but it's like, something as small as that ends up being a huge issue by the time it gets there. And that's a whole other rabbit hole to go down. And I don't know if that actually happens, but clearly this guy did not think that the number 2 yellow corn that this local farmer had in his grain bin was what he was purchasing on his end.
Is that right?
5,000 miles away or whatever it is. So how do we explain to them that, hey, that wasn't us?
Yeah.
That was somebody between here and there. And that's on a broad scale, but to far as educate the people, the ag in the classroom thing is great. Showing politicians something is a complete waste of time.
To me, it is.
There's no reason to show a politician anything other than a hallway and a gallows, and you pick which path you want to go down.
Yeah.
You can either do the right or you can do the wrong.
Yeah.
And there's your option.
Right.
But as far as educating the American public on that, I think it's baby steps. Just something as simple as labeling, right? So I go to the grocery store and I'm going to buy orange juice today. And there's non-GMO orange juice. There isn't GMO orange juice.
Yeah.
But I can buy non-GMO orange juice, even though every gallon of orange juice in that thing is non-GMO. But we've got this negative connotation to GMOs. So how do we explain to the average consumer that there's no such thing as GMO orange juice?
Yeah.
To my knowledge,
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there is.
Not that I know.
I'm dying for Roundup tomatoes. They make my gardening 10
Yeah.
times easier because I love tomatoes. I love tomato juice. I love chili soup all
Yep.
winter long. So I grow a lot of tomatoes. If I could spray Roundup on that shit and be done with it for the year, that'd be great.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm dying for them to do that.
Yep,
So
same
if
with
you're-
flowers. I would love to have Roundup Ready flowers
Yes.
for your flower beds.
Yeah.
Hose her down?
Hose her down. Go on.
Yep.
Hats off to the inventor of Roundup. It's a great product. So I don't understand. Well, I mean, I do understand it to a certain degree. But as far as educating people on that, I mean, it's baby steps. It's as simple as getting the labeling fixed on that. Getting the labeling fixed on beef. I don't want to eat beef from Timbuktu. And the only beef that should be sold in the United States, pork, whatever, is raised right here.
Yeah.
Fix the labeling. Small baby steps on educating them, explaining to them there's plenty of cows to be eaten in the United States. There's no reason to ship cows in from God knows wherever. We've got plenty of them here. So, we take those small baby steps. We explain to the public a little bit about what we're doing. They don't need to necessarily know that you greased your planter at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Sure.
That's inconsequential. They don't need to know that. But they do need to know that you're providing the best product that you can provide, the most cost-effective way you can provide it, so that their end of their grocery bill is as cheap as it can be.
Yeah.
That their cart full of groceries is $200, and it could be $500 if you did it this way.
Yeah.
But you've kept it at $200 because you did it this way.
Yep.
And that correlation can be made, but it's going to be through small baby steps.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. And I don't know where you start. I don't know who leads the charge. I don't know. Yeah.
Some of that always irritates me. Okay, we've got this soybean check off and this corn check off and this, that, and the other. And I'm not picking on those people. I'm sure they're doing good things with those dollars, maybe. But there should be some education there somewhere to the consumer.
Yeah.
That, hey, here's what they're doing, here's why they're doing it, and here's what you're getting.
Right.
We can go down these other paths.
Right.
But here's where you're going to get.
Yeah, because to me, it's stupid when you go into a first grade class and you give them a bunch of ink pens and you say, oh, this pen was made out of soybean oil. Well, that first grader would give a shit about that.
No, they don't care.
Yeah, and to me, I do get the whole fact of, take Hitler, for example, when you indoctrinate the youth. I get when you're trying to teach them when they're little kids, it's easier to teach them versus a 40-year-old. But at the same token, if we're going to take baby steps, why not start in the middle? Start with kids in high school and see how they deal with it and branch out from there. A first grader don't give a shit about where your meal comes from. That's the last thing on your mind.
No, but so you mentioned high school kids. Okay. So when we were kids, I think it was still Future Farmers of America for a brief time. Mm-hmm. I think. Then it got switched to FFA because, farming has a negative connotation. Yeah. Then much like a Dodge pickup today. You can't buy a Dodge pickup, you can buy a Ram.
Yeah.
Because a Ram has a better connotation than Dodge, right? Because people are, they're iffy about Dodge. It says to shy away from, avoid in the dictionary. They're going to buy a Ram. How do you stop stupid shit like that from happening and solve it? And it can be called FFA. I don't care what it's called. It's a great program. It's a great deal all the way through. Love my FFA teacher. God rest his soul. Is a great guy. Taught me a lot. All these little arrows on my paper here today are from him. That's how he taught me to do it. But you got to start. You're right. We should start in the middle and work our way backwards to both sides. Teach the youth something about it, and just casually plant it in the adult's ear of here's why we're doing it, here's how we're doing it, and here's the net result of it. The fact that your cheeseburger is not $19.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you want us to do it all organically? That's fine. Next time you go to McDonald's, your bill's $45 for you.
Yeah.
Are you cool with that? Yeah. Or would you rather have the $3.18 double cheeseburger meal like we had when we were kids?
Yeah.
And eat the commercially produced beef?
Yeah.
I can build the Cadillac of cattle farms for this little cow. And I can make it all great, climate controlled. He can have the best little life he can ever have. But it's going to cost you $45 a cheeseburger. Mm-hmm. Take your pick.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It's going to be tough because, man, it's almost like the country as a whole. Once it gets so far gone, it's hard to dig back out of that hole.
Well, in America, we're very fortunate as a population to really want for anything.
Right.
So we don't want for a lot in this country. I mean, yes, individually, I want this, you want that. We need some stuff. We have our struggles. But as a population, we don't want for a lot.
Right.
So once you don't want for a lot, it's hard to appreciate anything.
It is.
Right? If I drop off 3 hot meals to your house every day, and I park a brand new pickup truck in your house, at your driveway every 6 months, and I fill your tank up with gas every other week, this, that, and the other, eventually you quit caring about those items, right? Because they're just there.
Exactly.
So if I can go to the grocery store twice a month and I can buy my groceries for X percentage of my salary, wage, whatever, whoever I am, if I'm Bill Gates down to somebody way lower than him, which is pretty much the rest of us. Okay, I've got groceries I can eat. I'm going on. So you start to not appreciate those factors, and I think it's very hard to turn a corner and start to appreciate all that stuff if it's so easily to get. You know, if tomorrow I told you, hey, Tony, your tank of gas is in your truck, that's all you got for a month.
Yeah.
Well, you're probably not driving over to see me just to say, hey, how are you? You know, and we're very fortunate in this country. We're not in that circumstance. But there's a lot of places in the world that are.
Right. And the bad part, too, is once you get powerful organizations with money behind it, they can spin it any way they want then and outrule or outnumber the American farmer. You know, that environmental working group. I have no idea what that group does, what they're about, nothing. But, they're the one that started a big farm subsidy database where everybody can go and look it up. So that tells me right there they got to burr up their ass for farmers over something. I don't know. Don't know what it is, but so, you get groups like that. And I was always told, like, Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, when that very first started, the woman who started that, her son, I think got killed by a drunk driver. And she wholeheartedly believed in that deal 100%, started that group. And within about 10 years, it had grown so much, they basically kicked her clear out of the group and had these big high-rise office buildings, guys making $2 million a year salaries. And she's not even affiliated with it anymore. And that's where it took the wrong turn. Then it went from just not only drunk driving, but all this other propaganda that goes along with it. And
because eventually somebody starts getting $1 in their pocket and it's like, well, we could do this, we could do that. Yeah, it starts to spiral out of control.
Yeah.
It's very, very easy to see.
Yeah, and it's just like all the farm magazines that come. Them companies pay big money to put that shit in them magazines. That
they do.
And that skews a lot of opinions. Going forward. If you pick up the farm magazine every month and it's cover to cover of, let's just take cover crops because that's easy to pick on.
Yep.
Eventually, you're gonna probably consider doing it because you're reading these stories that it's
back to the farm subsidy thing. Okay, I can go and look up and see who got what and where. Can I go up and see who got windmill subsidies?
Right.
Can I go see what politician got paid off for this, that, and the other?
Yeah.
Because they're making $170,000 a year in Congress, but they come out multimillionaires. Can I see who's subsidizing them? No, there's not a website for that.
Exactly.
There should be.
Yeah.
But there's not.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to jump on a train if it's already going down the tracks.
Yeah.
You don't have to build the tracks for it.
Yeah. And they act like, farmers are the only group in America that get subsidized for anything. Mm-hmm. And it's a joke. I don't know. A lot of them groups, they're powerful and dangerous.
Well, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yep, you're right.
And you see a lot of things started for a good cause and then it ends up spiraling out of control.
Yeah, that I would agree with. And I don't know. I don't know where it'll ever stop or how we'll ever change it. And I'm as guilty as anybody. I'm not as proactive as I should be. I don't, I guess, I've got my YouTube channel, but I don't focus the YouTube content on necessarily educating people. It's just, this is what I do. And I try to answer questions if people have them, but I don't know. Maybe I should be different.
I can't think of the guy's name, but there's a guy I watch from time to time that raises cattle. And he gets a lot of, you should be doing it this way, you should be doing it that way, you should be organic this or grass-fed that. And he's pretty diligent about going through the questions and going along with it. And we all probably should be better about that. But how do we explain to those people that if you want all that, that's great. Just don't order a steak when you go to the restaurant next time. You're going to end up eating, you're not a whole lot of anything.
Yeah.
Just plan on being hungry when you leave, because if you want to do it your way, well, there's not going to be enough food for everybody.
That's right.
So we're doing it the most economical way we can do it.
Yep.
Not saying that makes it 100% right. The end doesn't always justify the means. But if there's a better way, a more efficient way, a more profitable way, a more sustainable way, a more healthier way, we'd be doing it that way.
I would agree. Yep.
But explaining that to everybody is difficult.
It is. Yep. Well, folks, we're going to have to wrap it up for this episode. We probably went a little too long here, but that's all right. Nobody's watching the clock. We're just sitting around drinking beer. So thanks to all you guys who've been tuning into this. Thanks to Nick McCormick for joining me on these episodes. And we will catch you guys next time. Take it easy, guys.